This is UMAR AHMED for IFL TV in association with MTK Global, joined by Richard Schaefer. A huge card on Saturday night on Fox pay-per-view, Wilder Ortiz 2, and an undercard as well, an impressive undercard. Talk to me about the bill, Richard.
Well, spectacular undercard. Leo Santa Cruz, one of the best pound-for-pound champions, long-reigning champion. He is going to be on the card. He could easily be the main event on any other card. And then you're going to have what I think is the best 118-pound fighter. 118-pound weight class is a very loaded weight class. We just had the sensational fight in Japan with Inoue and Donaire, and Ubali was on that card as well, the WBC champion. Luis Neri fighting against Rodriguez, former world champion. Great fight. I think Luis Neri is the best in the division, and he's the mandatory for Ubali as well, assuming he wins. So a great card, top to bottom. And of course, whenever you have a rematch of what was the previous year, the fight of the year, I'm talking about Wilder Ortiz 1, then you know it's a special treat. Heavyweight division is hot. Lots of great heavyweight fights, and with Wilder we're going to have the king of the division, the biggest puncher, 41 fights, no losses, 40 wins by knockout, spectacular puncher. Same with Ortiz, huge puncher. First fight had Wilder in trouble. In many other places they probably would have stopped the fight. So it was just a great fight, and here we can expect much of the same.
In terms of Luis Neri, and obviously Inoue is a formidable guy, coming off a good win against Donaire. Tough fight though. Considered now, I think, by a lot, top 5 pound for pound. Do you think he could be the man to derail Inoue?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I mean, Nonito Donaire is one of the most legendary champions of our generation. He almost had him, Inoue. So Inoue is good, but he is not the monster a lot of people say he is. And I always said, leading up to the fight, you can watch my interviews, I said you're going to have 2 monsters in the ring. And that's exactly what we had. We had the monster Donaire and we had the monster Inoue. And so if you're going to put now Neri in there, he's certainly as much of a monster as Inoue is. So he's a very, very good fighter. Great boxer, big puncher, good chin, difficult to beat. So that would be down the road a great matchup, Neri and Inoue.
Freddie Roach said he's the hardest puncher he's seen at that weight class, Luis Neri.
Yeah, I don't blame, and you know he's seen a few big punchers, so that's a great endorsement, and I do believe he is right there. He's one of the best fighters in the world, and in my opinion, the best fighter in the 118-pound weight class.
In terms of the main event, what does it say about Deontay Wilder as a person? The fact that Fury rematch is on the table in February, and he's taken a big risk in Luis Ortiz, only just a few months away before, where many fighters wouldn't have to do this. What do you think it says about Deontay?
Well, you know, great champions, they challenge themselves, and we've seen that here at the MGM some months ago, earlier this year, with Manny Pacquiao challenging himself against Keith Thurman. You know, you've got to give it to these big-name fighters that they are seeking out the biggest and most dangerous challenges, and that is what Deontay Wilder is doing. He knows how big of a puncher Ortiz is. He knows he had him in trouble. He knows that Ortiz can change the fight and Deontay's career with one punch, and he knows there's a potential big fight on the line against Fury for early part of next year, and yet he takes that challenge. I call it playing with fire, because that's what it is. That's a decision which potentially could cost Deontay Wilder not millions but tens of millions, and but that is exactly what makes Deontay Wilder the king of the heavyweight division, and what makes a great fighter a star, a superstar, and that is what Deontay Wilder is.
Let's just say, for the sake of this question, Deontay comes through on Saturday night. He's the favourite. Are we gearing to a Wilder-Ruiz undisputed fight if Ruiz wins that rematch against Joshua and then taking Fury out of the picture? Or would he still want that Fury rematch, do you think?
Well, there's a lot of moving targets. You know, we need to see what happens in the Joshua fight. You know, Joshua might just be the wrong style. And with Fury, who knows? I mean, reading his comments that he might stay in WWE, so we don't even know if he's still in boxing or if he's focusing more now on WWE. So it doesn't really, matter. What matters right now is Wilder Ortiz, the rematch of the fight of the year. The two biggest punchers. Clearly the two biggest punches in the division going at it, and that's what matters. And when you're going to turn your camera around and you're going to look at this picture there of Ortiz, the Ortiz we see yesterday is not the Ortiz we see on that poster.
Do you think we'll get a better Luis Ortiz in a rematch?
I think we are going to see the absolute best Luis King Kong Ortiz we have ever seen. He is in shape physically, we saw that. He's in shape mentally, and he knows that this is high noon for him, meaning this might be his last chance. And he wants to win that title. He wants to do it for himself, for his family, and particularly for his daughter. And so this is one dangerous King Kong Luis Ortiz. And that's why this is must-see TV.
Just to round off, Richard, away from this card, I just want to get your thoughts on the current state of boxing in America. You've been in the sport a very long time. How do you think it is with yourselves here at PBC and Fox and Showtime? You've got top-ranked ESPN, Matchroom and Dazn, obviously Golden Boy on that network as well. How do you think American boxing's faring at the moment?
Well, I think what happened in 2019 is sort of like interesting. In the beginning of the year, we had these three platforms. We had ESPN, we had DAZN, and we had Fox/Showtime with PBC. What we've seen in 2019 is extremely encouraging, because what happens, Premier Boxing Champion, PBC, have clearly set themselves apart from the rest. We've seen that in the kind of eyeballs, kind of viewing numbers they deliver over and over again. I mean, it's a bit telling that from DAZN, or from ESPN for that matter, we don't get any viewing numbers. Usually when somebody has something good to say, something to brag about, they say it. So I think it's a relatively small audience they deliver on these subscription services. That might change down the road, but I'm just talking, you ask me about right now. And then you see PBC, like last weekend, following an NFL, National Football League football game, they had the countdown show on Wilder Ortiz following the football game, and they had 2.5 million homes. That's about 10 to 12 million people watching. I mean, 2.5 million homes. That's more homes than ESPN has, has as subscribers, and it is 10 times as much as DAZN has. So I mean, to pull in these kind of numbers for boxing is very, very encouraging. As a matter of fact, it's the biggest post-NFL programming since 2015. And the fact that it was boxing and not like some movie or some other sports is really encouraging to the sport. So I think Fox is doing a tremendous job promoting the sport of boxing. They're all in. They're enthusiastic about it, and they're one of the big networks here in the US. So it was a big, big year for PBC and for boxing, and for Fox as well. So I'm very enthusiastic about 2020. This is as well the third pay-per-view we're doing. Fox has entered the pay-per-view business and is doing a tremendous job promoting pay-per-view. Pay-per-views are doing well. They're basically an additional distribution platform. And the beauty is, as a consumer, you can decide to buy it or you don't. There's nobody like holding a gun to your head and say, you need to buy this pay-per-view. You can or you don't, you know. So the fact is that the audience here in the United States has embraced this pay-per-view product. They've been generating between 300 and 350,000 homes, which is 25 million or so in revenues, and clearly shows that some of these other people out there in boxing, they say that pay-per-view is dead. Pay-per-view is not dead. When you have nights which between the pay-per-view numbers and the gate and the foreign TV numbers, the foreign distribution deals and the sponsorships and all these things can generate $50 million a night in real revenues, that's not a dead product. So pay-per-view is doing well, so we're going to look at continuing with the pay-per-view product next year as well. I couldn't be prouder. Many of the fighters within the PBC stable have, the world champions. They have delivered. They've been all in big fights. There's a great crop of young fighters coming up as well. And for the young fighters, I might want to add that PBC is really like the only game in town because they have the eyeballs. It's very difficult to become a star in the sport of boxing if you don't have the eyeballs to watch you. So if you can showcase your talents in front of Fox, in front of millions of people watching on Fox, then it's much easier to become a star and get name recognition. And great young fighters are coming up. Next year is going to be a big year for boxing as well because we have the Olympic year, 2020. So hopefully we're going to get some young, exciting Olympians coming out of the 2020 class. So a lot to look forward to and a lot to be thankful for as it relates to 2019.
Well, the Fox pay-per-views you're referring to, Pacquiao, Furman and Spence were absolutely brilliant. So let's hope we get another one on Saturday night with Wilder and Ortiz. Richard Schaefer, thank you very much for your time on IFL. Is there anything you want to add?
No, thank you so much. And happy holidays to all the fight fans from the UK. I love you guys. You're the best fans in the world. And always happy to be back in the UK. Thank you.
Yes, Wilder Ortiz 2 on Sky Sports in the UK.
Thank you.
Is special.